They're all on lockdown with the coronavirus, but I'm not going to talk about corona tonight. I'm fed up of the news coverage of it. We know it's here, we know it's there, we know it's bloody everywhere in the world. We know what we've got to do to stay safe. Hunker down, stay at home, only essential travel. I'm lucky I'm not stuck in the house all day, all night, because I am priority worker now. That's what we've been classified as, so at least I can get out of the house and go and do one of my jobs. But what I'm going to talk about tonight is me. And what got me into my bikes, my side-by-sides, my cars. Not that you see an awful lot of my car's a bit boring, but we'll get to that later. The one I've got now is boring. It's just a car, just gets me from A to B. It's all I want nowadays. Get me fun in the Yamaha or on the gas when I finally get it working. What turned me into a petrol head? Let's put it into context. It's 2020 now, and I'm 52 this year. And what got me into petrol was when I was 7. And my dad was always into cars. First car I can ever remember my dad having, a Mini Cooper S, a 1070, a red one, which had the number plate 100 HDM. Never ever forget that car. It's impossible to forget that number plate. It's ingrained in my bloody head. It'll always be there. Anyhow, when I was 7, my dad decided it was time to introduce me, to my mum's disgust, to motorcycles. So he bought himself a Yamaha TY 175 trials bike, twin shock, and started trials riding. And he joined the local club. He did trials in North Wales, and he used to drag me around the country everywhere. And I'd go and watch him. And I know I was a little bit too small to be riding the TY 175, but he used to get me riding it around the garden. I'd prop it up against the wall, I'd start it up, kick myself off, and our garden wasn't particularly big in the house that my mum and dad had when I was little, and he'd have me riding around the garden. I'd ride off the path that ran round the side of the house. I'd run onto the lawn, around the kiddie swing we had, up to the back door, down the back end of the house, through the alleyway, then make a 90-degree turn in, and I'd go back down to the lawn. Somewhere along the line I'd turn round, I'd go back, and I'd do it all again. And if I fell off, well, I couldn't pick the bike up, so I learnt very quickly not to fall off. I learnt very quickly about clutch control, brakes, what gear to be in. And then one of the trials he did, I said to him, is there any chance we can sort of enter the trial together, where he could do the section and then bring the bike back to me, and I'd do the section? And he was a bit apprehensive. Anyhow, he did agree, and I've got to admit, I was still only 7 and I couldn't touch the floor. I either got through the section or I fell off and I got a 5. But I seem to remember I beat him that day because I couldn't afford to fall off. And I used to watch everybody go through the sections and run them last. And I'd pick a line, and I'd have to religiously stick to it. Anyway, after doing this a couple of times, he decided he'd buy me a TY80, which at the time I could ride, touch the floor. So I rode that for a couple of seasons, learnt all my skills, my clutch control, and then a lot of you out there will remember the Whitehawks, which was basically TY80 front forks, front wheels, but a bigger frame. So it made the bike a little bit taller, because by now I'm growing. I outgrew that. So then we went Whitehawk Mark II, which was the big wheeled version, but still a small frame, but full size wheels. And I had a particularly good year, and I was still like schoolboy B at the time. And I ran every single trial on my own little TY80 Whitehawk Mark II that year. And I just rode the trials and I just enjoyed it. I wasn't going out to do anything particularly good. I was just having fun. I was a kid on a bike, learning skills. And he dragged me to the presentation night, which I wouldn't normally have got to go to because they didn't get out of there till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and it would have been a school night. And my mum would have wanted me at home in bed 8:30. Anyhow, this one night I went. And we went through all the presentation, and then at the end of the night they start doing all the awards. So they've done the expert awards, the seniors and all this, and the over 45s, and they worked down to the schoolboy A, and they got to schoolboy B. They went, oh, in third place is so and so, come and get your award. Second place, so and so, come and get your award. And this year's winner of schoolboy B was me. And I'm thinking, no effing way. That was the first time I'd ever won anything. I won the award for schoolboy B that year. And I didn't know, because I didn't bother even looking at results at the end of a trial. I didn't follow the results and nothing. And I came home with a trophy and I was as proud as punch. So the following year we went out, again me on the Whitehawk, my dad on the TY175. I think we got a couple of events into the year, and my dad had a nasty accident and he ended up in a river under the water with the bike on top of him and broke a load of ribs. And that was when he said, enough's enough, like, and he called it quits. And I said to him, well, if that's the case, can I take over the 175? Which I rode. Considering he'd had it since I was 7, I rode that bike till I was 15. In competition, I had quite a lot of success on that TY175, and I really enjoyed the bike. When I turned 16, or just before I turned 16, I said to my dad, I want a bike to ride on the road. So I've got my own independence and I can get about. So he said, well, if you want a bike, you're working, because at the time I had a part-time job on a Saturday and a Sunday in a little engineering workshop, because that's what I wanted to do when I left school. So I'd got a job in an engineering workshop about 20 miles from where I live, and my dad used to take me there in the morning on a Saturday, come and pick me up, take me back on a Sunday, come and pick me up Sunday afternoon. So I saved all my wages. And I bought 2 wrecked Yamaha FS1Es, and out of the 2 bikes, one was a 1985 DX, which was the one with the front disc brake, and one was a 1976 pre-restricted, and the FS1Es pre-restricted were quite a nippy little bike. So we basically turned 2 bikes into one. So I had the DX front end with the disc, the 76 frame, which it was the best frame, stripped them, painted them. So I painted the frame red. I don't know why I painted it red, but that was the colour I wanted to paint it. Stripped the tank back and all the metal panels off the 76, painted them jet black, lacquered them, they look really good. Picked the best bumpers, polished them to a high shine, lacquered them so they wouldn't go rusty, painted the insides of the bumpers, and I put that bike on the road. I had numerous problems with it. I remember going to work one morning, burnt a hole in the piston because I'd held it flat out for nearly 10 miles down the motorway at about 60 miles an hour. Yeah, a fizzy would do 60 miles an hour. I burnt a hole in the piston and ended up pushing it to work. Got to work a bit late, but I was with my bike and decided in my dinner break I would decide, oh, let's go and find out why my bike's not working, because it wouldn't start. Didn't know at the time I'd burnt a hole. And I popped the cylinder head off and saw this gorgeous little hole in the top of the piston. I thought, melted a piston, got too hot. And I decided, whilst I was there, I'd pull the barrel off. So I pulled the barrel off, pulled the piston out. Never touched an engine before in my life. I had no idea about playing with engines, especially two-strokes. I'd seen my dad building four-stroke car engines and that. I thought, I can do that. So piston came off, took the piston into work, went rooting through my little toolbox in work, and I found a piece of brass. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to braze that piece of brass onto the top of the piston to fix the piston, because there was nothing else wrong with the piston. So I put it in the lathe, made the piece of brass into a perfect circle, carefully put the piston into the lathe, and I bored a counter bore in the top of the piston where the hole was, laid the piece of brass into it, and I brazed it into the piston, machined it, put it back in the bike, and I rode the bike home. And I noticed, oh, this bike goes really, really well now with this piece of brass in the top of the piston. I didn't realise I'd brought the compression up really, really high. And that was the very first engine I'd ever modified, unknowingly modified. But it was needs must that I needed to get home. And I had access to the gear to do it, so we did it. So that was the very first modification I ever did to an engine. And it ran, and it ran, and it ran. And then a friend of mine had a YB100, which he wrote off. So I give him 20 quid for that, because I'd already realised YB100 was basically an FS1E with a big engine, and it looked like a fizzy engine. So I transplanted the 100 engine into the fizzy. People are going to go, shouldn't have done that, you're 16, you should be on a moped, you should only be on a 50cc, but unless you knew what you were looking for and you're a really bright copper, you wouldn't know any difference. So I rode around on this little 100cc FS1E, and I used to burn all my mates off on their 125 four strokes and their MTX 125s. It was that quick. With a micron on it, I jetted it. So I've now got the bug for modifying. But I'm coming up towards 17 now. I would have been coming up towards 17. But just before I turned 17, I decided I want a bigger bike. So I sold the FS1E to fund my next bike. So I bought a Kawasaki AE80. Little 80cc two-stroke. I should have carried on running the FS1E, but I was still into dirt bikes, so I thought, yeah, I'll buy a dirt bike, I'll have a trail bike. And I pounded that bike from the July I bought it right through to the December, and I pounded it and I pounded it and I pounded it, and it never let me down. Cracking bike. And then we finished work that Christmas, and I wasn't meant to go back till after the new year, but I decided one Monday afternoon I'd go down to work and I'd just go down for a ride, because there was a cracking trail above the above where work was. So I popped in, said hello to the boss, went for a ride, popped in, had a brew, had a little tinker with my bike whilst I was there, and it'd gone dark and I was coming home. and I'd got to a place called Rutland, driven through the village, and I was coming back up now towards Abergele. And if anybody knows North Wales, you've got something called the Rutland Stretch, which runs from Rutland up to where McDonald's is now, just by the A55. And halfway up that road now is a roundabout. But years and years ago, it was a crossroads. So imagine the scene. I'm coming up there, and I've got this little A80 pinned, and it can't go any quicker. It's sat at 70 miles an hour. I'm lying on the tank. It's dark. I got my lights on, everything, and I'm coming up towards the crossroads. So I've backed off, back down to about 60 miles an hour, and there's a car at the crossroads. And I remember him looking at me, and I'm thinking, he's seen me,